So I'm now thinking seriously about making this watch, and I found it was quite a hard task because I didn't have sufficient equipment or tools. They had been very primitive. I managed to get some tools together. I bought a second-hand lathe, which demonstrated the foolhardiness of buying second-hand lathes. They're only sold because they're worn out, and mine was worn out. However, there's nothing I could do but learn how to use it and get the best I could out of it. And so I started on this watch. I made a couple of drawings of it. I got into a bit of a tangle now and again and realized that designing watches on paper and then making them wasn't the way I was going to go through life. I had to make the watch without any drawings, and then when it was finished, make the drawings to use perhaps on some later occasion. And I've found that has influenced the whole of my watchmaking career, that I cannot make a drawing and then make a watch from the drawing, which is what most people do. My way suits me better. And of course, since there are no drawings, I can change my mind as often as I like in midway and change the design. One thinks of ways of improving. While one's working, one thinks of ways of improving the details of watches. And I worked for nearly 2 years on this watch, one way or another. First I had to spend many hours late at night practicing engine turning in order to make the dials and so forth. All that took a lot of time. Everything needed practice. Everything needed making. Even special files had to be ground to shape and formed to do some of the work. And it took, as I say, 2 years, and at the end of that time, it was done. And it wasn't finished, but the movement was done and ready for the final stages, which meant the dial and hands and the case. And the case was a problem, because I had no experience of case making. I had no materials for case making, no tools, case making tools. And so I struck a deal with a watchmaker in Clerkenwell. I've got to think of his name. Oliver. Struck a deal with his Oliver, who had a Dickensian workshop in Clerkenwell and was a brilliant case maker. Not because he had any special talent for making cases, but because he'd been whipped as a boy into doing it perfect all the time. And he was, being a Clerkenwellier, he was incapable of doing anything else but perfect. And so I wanted him to make the case. I noted on his bench several watch movements, just lying in open boxes, obviously all taken in to have cases made. And I was a bit reluctant to leave my watch there, but I took out the delicate parts and took the watch to him, and he put it in a box on his bench. And I went back some 5 or 6 weeks later, still in the box on the bench, and it hadn't been moved. And I realized he wasn't going to make this case. He had every willing intention of doing it, but it wouldn't be possible for him to do it. He couldn't, he was too old, and he couldn't get himself motivated, and why anyway should he do anything for a young whippersnapper like me? He's a proper chap and the top of his profession. Why should he help me? And that was the Clerkenwell attitude. And so I struck a deal with him, and I said, if you show me in your workshop how to make a case, I will pay you as if you had made the case for me. And he agreed, and I think the sum was £40. That was in 1968. So it wasn't a bad sum of money, really, for Oliver to take. And he showed me how to make the case. He didn't do anything. He was most careful not to touch anything to do with the case or the tools or anything. He would just point me, do that, and you want to do this. And eventually I got the case made. It wasn't terribly difficult to do, but I learned the techniques, and that was what the important thing I got from Oliver. And so there was my case finished, and I took it to the assay office and they said they couldn't assay it because it had the wrong proportion of silver and gold. And I was devastated. My beautiful case, really, they couldn't hallmark it. But the assay master was a very congenial chap, and he said, look, if I were you, I would remake a new front bezel for it in silver, and then bring it back and have it assayed. And then you could take off the silver bezel and put the gold on. So I did that, and it worked out well, and I got my case hallmarked. And I picked the case up from the hall, from the goldsmith's assay hall, about 6 o'clock in the evening. And I was so thrilled, I ran every step of the way to London Bridge Station to get the train home again. And I think that's a distance of about 4 miles. I ran it all the way there.